Christy O'Connor, a bumper weekend of hurling ahead. Saturday evening, you have the Joe McDonagh Cup final and the Leinster Hurling final at Croke Park. Sunday, the Munster Hurling final at Semple Stadium. But I suppose we'll start off with the Leinster Senior Hurling final. Galway Kilkenny, spicy rivalry developing or continuing, whatever way you want to look at it.
Yeah, definitely keen. And I suppose, look, the famous handshake in modern sport is kind of act two, what's going to happen next. And, look at, I suppose that there's that kind of undertone there. And I suppose people will be watching out for that. But I think, I think it's probably a little bit, the fact that it's on at 7 o'clock, Cian, on a Saturday evening in Croke Park, especially for Galway people, I think they're only expecting around 25,000. I remember being at Leinster finals in the past, like where, it was like double that. I remember even the Galway Wexford Leinster final in 17. It was a massive occasion. It got to 60,000 people there, and I suppose the fact that Wexford hadn't been there in so long, they brought a big crowd, and that was a real occasion. So it's probably just a little bit of a pity that it's going to be diluted in that sense. But look, a massive game, and Kilkenny already lost twice in the championship. Kind of almost inconceivable to think that they could lose 3 times and still not be gone. Have a quarter final or to come. So the thought of losing to Galway twice in the 1 year, the thought of losing 3 times, you can imagine how what Bodie'd be thinking of that. But then there's other stuff as well. You'd hear that that there was a few things said after the last Galway game in the Kilkenny dressing room when the Ballyhale players weren't happy with it. So there's all of that going on as well. And maybe there's stuff that was maybe said about Shefflin, which can't be good. Like when you've got players so close to Henry in that Kilkenny dressing room. So you'd wonder, has that fed in to the Kilkenny dressing room a little bit from the last day? Because that was not a good display by Kilkenny. And to lose to Wexford in the championship in Nolan Park for the first time, all of this stuff, it just feeds into that kind of narrative around Kilkenny, that consistency, that they're still hard to beat. There's nobody's ever going to question that. Galway only beat them by a point, Wexford beat them by 4 points. You're never gonna give Kilkenny a trim, and that just doesn't happen. But there's maybe that inconsistency, and that there isn't that kind of fireproof conviction or power that you always would have associated with them. Even last year in the All-Ireland semi-final, they took the game to extra time, which was an incredible achievement considering how far Cork were probably ahead of them coming into the closing stages of normal time. But Cork just powered away from them in extra time. So there's a lot going on there, Cian, and that we'd probably see more of on Saturday. But the other thing is Hugh Lawler wasn't there the last day. He, along with Mikey Butler, he was probably the best defender in the league. Massive loss. You could see the damage that Conor McDonald did, when Lawler wasn't around. So all of that stuff. So but I suppose for Galway's perspective as well, that they have developed that level of consistency, which we didn't see in the league, but which we've seen in the championship. They are still only one of 3 teams unbeaten in the championship. So but now is the chance to really show that maybe inconsistency that's been in Galway since really the 2018, middle of the 2018 campaign, when they drew with Kilkenny in the Leinster final, won the replay, drew with Clare, went to extra time, won the replay, poor performance in the final against Limerick, poor championship in 19, average championship I would say in 20, disastrous championship last year. So Galway really need to kind of nail this now, Cian, and they need a performance, and I think they need a Leinster title to kind of maybe just for their own, I think, just their own sense of worth and their own sense of direction, and that just to almost copper fasten that they feel that they're on the road to somewhere.
It's a strange one, Christy, because I suppose life has taught us many lessons, and the one thing that you'd always say is that Kilkenny will always be dangerous regardless of form or circumstance, and as you mentioned, the 2 defeats, and if any team can recover from that type of a scenario. Another county will be in real difficult times, but with Kilkenny, you still have that respect for them, that you know that they'll come with all guns blazing. That's on one side of the coin. And then the other, as you said there, Christy, for Galway to win a Leinster Championship in Henry Shefflin's first year in charge, obviously you had a feel-good factor at the start of the year, and that buzz is still there, and it's important, I suppose, to maintain that momentum, because it is a transitional phase too. But to win while going through that spell would only bring encouragement for the future.
Yeah, like definitely. But I think as well, from Galway's perspective, like, and we've spoken about this, maybe last week, Cian, that there really seems to be a kind of a togetherness now. And I'm not saying that wasn't there in the past, but that the whole kind of package seems to be right. I'm not sure if that was the case in the last couple of years, where whether everybody was on the same page between management, players, county board. I think that's the one thing that, fairness to Henry, is, look, he learned that probably more than anything from Cody, like this. You start with your spirit, and even I saw Rory Gallagher speak about this recently as well, whereby you can't implement tactics or any kind of game plan unless you have the basics right first, and that's like a really together group. I think that's the one thing a lot of people miss about Limerick as well, that incredible players, unbelievable system, super management, brilliant coach, but like, they're a really, really together group, like very, very tight. You can see that bond on and off the pitch. And I think that's the one thing that Galway, that I'm not saying they didn't have in the last couple of years, but there definitely wasn't as strong as it has been in the past, or it had been in the past, or probably wasn't as strong as it needed to be for Galway to get to where they wanted to go to. So, like, yeah, that they like, look, he's brought in new players, he's brought in younger players. You still feel there's an awful lot more to come from some of those younger players, and like they're okay. Galway maybe haven't been bringing through the same level of under 20s that other counties have, but like, it's still from looking at some of those players over the years, like that, maybe it's just going to take them that bit longer now, Cian. We've mentioned this so many times, where they're coming in now and they're not really ready until they're 23, 24, as opposed to being ready earlier when people expect them to be, when they're not. So yeah, like there's all of that stuff going on, but like I still think, like, the you're talking about transition, like, but it's still the main guys that are Galway going to rely on. It's like, looking at the last day, like first half, a lot of those guys weren't doing it. Like, you could wheel in the second half. Like the way other players stepped up, like Dahi Burke is still Dahi Burke, like Davy Burke. It looked like his inter-county career was over last year. He's been a key player, like massive leader, massive presence, massive experience. Because his injury is a bit of a downer coming into this game. But yeah, look, I think they're in a good place. Like, that I'm not saying that they're in the same place as the likes of Limerick, but look, we've said this before, like, that if Galway if they win Sunday, they're in a semi-final, they're meeting a team, that are coming through the back door. Like, there's no team out there really apart from Limerick that you could say, like, Clare obviously I think Clare number 2 at the moment. But like, if Clare play Galway, it's never going to be anything in that game. That's going to be local rivalry that, will, it's going to be like two physically strong teams if that happens. So yeah, like, I think Galway at the moment, they're in a really good place. But like, they're going to have to just go and beat Kilkenny. Like, there's no more of this kind of, looking for consistency or looking to see where they're at. They're just going to have to go out and win the game, and like, lay down a marker and say, right, we're in Croke Park again now. Like, the last time they were there was a fiasco, like, lost to Dublin last year with complete underperformance. They haven't been in Croke Park in a really big game since the 2018 All-Ireland final. So they're back there now. A lot of these guys look made for the place. So now they just got to go up and just get it done.
It's been a reasonably encouraging Leinster Championship round robin for them, though, in the way that maybe the first day out they were pegged back by Wexford, but the response has been decent. They've won 4 matches on the spin, beating Dublin and Kilkenny at Pearse Stadium, and running up good scores against Laois and Westmeath too.
Yeah, like, but I think at fairness, Keane, like if you go back to the Wexford game, like they were good like for 60 minutes, 60 plus minutes, and then the whole thing kind of just fell apart. So, and you know yourself in those round robin games, especially you go to an away venue and the crowd get on top, the momentum shifts a bit, be a little bit hard to arrest it. And then there was that whole incident with the referee overturning the free, Conor Cooney's free for taking a bit too long on it. And if that had gone over, the game was over. You're in the 75th minute. So look, in one sense it might have been a bad thing in that it gave them that wake-up call that, okay, they knew they were good enough, they knew they were, they performed well for 60 minutes, but maybe took their foot off the gas. And sometimes you learn more from this kind of stuff than you do from going down and drilling a team. So yeah, look at I think it has been a good, like, when you consider where they were coming from last year. I think the Henry factor was always gonna they were always gonna get a massive bounce from that. A guy like him coming in, and I think, as we've spoken with this as well, I think given what happened during the year, Henry losing his brother in such tragic circumstances, and maybe that little bit of a fear that he mightn't come back, and that then they went down to the funeral and they realised the travel that was involved and what he was putting into it. And I think that's probably galvanised him a bit more. Like, from the soundings you get from coming out of the squad, that they're really, really happy with him, delighted with how things are going. And that maybe all feeds into that, that general sense that, yeah, everything is going right here now and there's no excuses. And that, we just go out now, we just got to get the job done. And I think as well, it's funny how players react to different scenarios. And, maybe that whole thing, the handshake, I know you can make too much of it, but that didn't go down as well in Kilkenny as it was intended. Or, like, people realise, like, look at Henry's after burying his brother not long before this happened. And I know it's championship, I know Cody is Cody and he wants to be the winner, but and then the Galway players are looking at this and they're saying, hold on a second, look at what this guy is giving us. We see how much this means, this whole thing means, where he's come from Kilkenny into our camp. He's our leader. He's obviously taking a bit of heat down there. And that, maybe that's just really, really giving the Galway players more fuel to kind of just go and just basically just burn Kilkenny, basically. So, yeah, so look at, it's all interesting subplots and a lot going on, Keane. So look, I'm really looking forward to it. Like, look at, the sad thing is there's not too many of these big hurling days left. You have 3 big games at the weekend. Then you have prelim, quarterfinals, semi-finals. Before you know it, the season will be over. So, like, these are the days you kind of you're really, really looking forward to.
No shortage of subplots on Sunday in Thurles too. Clare, arguably the story of the championship so far, the manner in which they've returned to prominence under Brian Lohan against Limerick, who have suffered a number of injuries, and it's just seems to be delicately poised, and a game that's eagerly anticipated down your way, Chrsity.
Yeah, to look at it, it's actually brilliant, Keane, to see, like, there's a real buzz back. Like, it's funny how the whole thing can flip in such a short time span as well. Like, whereas, last year, Clare were beaten and the minors were beaten by 40 points. The under-20s went another year without winning a game, which was like 6 years without winning a game at under-20 level. 5 years, I think, 5 or 6. And, I suppose the seniors, decent championship, but lost to Cork and lost to Tip. And then there's the whole fiasco on the county board and Carlow and, constant negativity. And now all of a sudden, it's the whole thing is kind of turned. Like, the minors, almost won an unbelievable Munster final. Went down to Cork, beat Cork down there. Good Cork team. Under-20s, you could arguably say, were possibly the best team in the country. Should have beaten Limerick. 6 goal chances, and Limerick ended up in the final. Could have won it, didn't play at all, really. Only lost by a point. And the seniors have just been incredible. Like, it's absolutely unbelievable how they've turned around. And even to go back to the first real big game of the year, when Limerick came to Cusack Park for the Munster League final. And, like, Limerick, it was the first sellout game, I'd say, since the 2019 All-Ireland football replay, because it was the restrictions had been lifted. Cusack Park is 18,000 capacity. Limerick supporters hadn't seen, a lot of them hadn't seen their team in the flesh in 2 years. So was a massive occasion for January, and Limerick came out with a kind of a, very much second team. Like the 13 players to play in the Ireland final didn't feature. Cleared 11 seasoned kind of campaigners. Limerick won at a canter, and the Limerick crowd weren't slow in reminding the Clare players or Clare crowd that day who was top dogs now. Like, and I think the Clare players were, Clare supporters were kind of wondering, God, we're going to have to take this pain for a few years. Like, but it's never been in the Clare psyche or the Clare nature, like to kind of take to let Limerick or allow Limerick have that level of superiority over them. So like, the league game in March was a big game. Clare had a great start. Limerick had lost the first 3 games. Like, okay, there was nothing really at stake because neither team was going to get relegated. But like, that was a real kind of a serious contest. And I think a lot of Clare people took a lot of hope out of that, like where, it wasn't a good league. They lost to Cork heavily in the first game, lost to Wexford. Took them all their time to put Offaly away. And just like they really stood up to Limerick that day. Real physical battle, like draw. And I think a lot of people saw something in Clare that day that maybe we were wondering was there. And then look at, you've had the players coming back. But like, look at, I spoke to Paul Brown this week. I was doing a piece to Examiner on the Clare Limerick rivalry, and he said, like, he made one line about, he said, look at this Limerick team that they treat everyone with grey faces, like, and that there's never any emotion. But he said the one exception are Clare in that it's just the game you just do not want to lose, like, and that Limerick are always on their guard with Clare. Look at obviously the history and the connection and the amount of Limerick people that work in Shannon, the amount of Clare people that work in Limerick. Like the Gaelic grounds is a mile from the Limerick border. You've most of the kids now in South Clare, Southeast Clare, go to school in Limerick. Like, you had that Dean Ryan final back in November, Flannels beat Ardskull, where you had eight starters on the Ardskull team were Clare players. If you go through the 2 panels that day, like, it was like effectively there was I think like between the Flannels guys and the Ardskull, it was nearly over 35 players from Clare involved in both squads, which is phenomenal. So I think that as well, Cian, you look at the Ardskull team this year, like St. Joseph Tulla beat Ardskull in the Harty final. Ardskull came back, won the All-Ireland. Some of their main players were Clare fellas, right? And I think that kind of dynamic is kind of almost created a greater awareness of the younger player of what the Clare Limerick rivalry actually is, and how much of a connection there is. And Paul Brown made a good point. He said that Clare people and Limerick people might want to hear it, but he said we're kind of essentially, a lot of time we're kind of the same people, as in that there's such that connection there and there's that closeness there. And I don't think the rivalry is really kind of like, you've seen stuff in the past like the likes of Armagh Rome where it's absolute bitterness and real kind of real boil there. Like, I don't think that's really there. Like, there's a serious rivalry there, but like, it's kind of very, very keen. Like, and it's, look, a lot of it probably stems from the 90s when Clare Limerick was just, the rivalry was absolutely incredible. It was like almost, Clare Limerick games were almost a byword for mayhem. Like, it was anything went. Like, it was some of the toughest characters that ever played the game were playing those games. And I think the modern Clare and Limerick players over the last decade or more, they've always been very conscious of that rivalry. And I think you're going to see all that on Sunday, Cian. It's a massive game. Like, Clare, throughout their history, they've only beaten Limerick once in a Munster final back in '95. So, Clare now know that Limerick are going for 4 in a row. They know that they're the one team that they've no hang-ups with Limerick. Never fear them. No matter how good Limerick are, Clare would never like take a backward step against Limerick. They proved in the round robin game like that they're the one team, probably along with Galway, that can physically stand up to Limerick. Limerick can't overpower, physically bully, and they know that now as well. So yeah, there's all of this. It's fascinating stuff, and like, there's so much at stake for Clare as well. Not having won a Munster title in 24 years, it's a long, long time, and just like to have the chance now, like, and sell out crowd, like terrace tickets gone in 11 minutes. It's brilliant. Like, it's absolutely fantastic, considering that a lot of people didn't fancy Clare to get out of the, to get in the top 3 for Munster. Now here they are, top the group in their own robin, and they're coming in now with serious form behind them, like, in serious momentum. And mad keen for a crack at Limerick. And like, that's the thing, Keen. Like, there's a lot of people that went to play Limerick that maybe are mentally beaten before they even start. That is absolutely not the case with Clare. Like, these boys were fully believing that they can beat Clare or beat Limerick on Sunday.
How much of it, Chrsity, is down to the man on the line, Brian Lohan, as you mentioned there, the rivalry in the 90s, a totemic figure, the red helmet, the clearances that always got a guttural roar really from the Clare crowd. And now he's on the sideline, seems a more considered manager, considering he was a really passionate player and an accomplished player in his own right, one of the best fullbacks of all time, of course. But how instrumental has he been in the, I suppose, the rebirth and the re-emergence of this Clare team?
Yeah, absolutely, Keen. Like you'll have to say, you know, like a bit like Galway in one sense, like that he's absolutely galvanized the county. Like, I'm not saying that wasn't there with other managers, like, but it was like, but you know, with a lot of the negativity that was going on, and you know, like, let's make no mistake about it, like, you know, there was people in the Clare County board did their level best to get Lohan out, like, you know, not for him not to get the job in the first place. You know, that was almost a setup that, you know, the county, the delegates, you know, rebelled against. You know, there's been issues like where, you know, people in the county board doing their level best to sabotage, you know, what he was trying to do, like, and he's risen above all that. Like, and I think the way Timo Lohan is, you know, he was, even as a player, Keen, like, he was unbelievably dedicated. Like, he would do whatever it took, you know, on and off the pitch to be successful. Like, and, you know, even the players who would have played with him would have always said that, like, that nobody worked harder, you know, nobody kind of, you know, did as much. And I'd say, look at Lohan, without overcomplicating it, he probably demands that. And look at he's, you said it, absolute inspirational figure that, you know, players obviously want to play for. And I'd say with Lohan as well, there's no major complications, there's no major, obviously every box is ticked, like, but I think it's very much as well, you know, you man up and you win your own battle, you win your own duel, you do whatever you have to do, and you know, all of that stuff. Like, and you look, I suppose, when you look at the makeup of the Clare team as well, like, they're built for power and they're built for war, basically. And that was who Lohan was. He, you know, and Lohan absolutely never believed that anyone was better than him. He never believed anyone was better than Clare. You know, he's instilled that belief. And you even look at the form of Tony Kelly in the last, under Lohan, it's just been absolutely incredible. Like, he's, you know, successive All-Stars, probably on the road to another one again this year if he keeps going the way he is. Definitely will be. Like, you know, when you look at Tony maybe in previous years, like, you know, like when Clare were hammered by Limerick in 2019, like, Tony scored a point from play. Like, you know, you look at him in the last 2 years against Limerick, 2020, and we'll say when they played Limerick in 2020, he gave an absolute exhibition, got man of the match. Like, when they played 3 weeks ago, he gave another exhibition, like, in a game that was so, you know, possession was so precious. Like, his first 6 possessions, he got 5 points and was fouled for a free. Like, in a game like that, like, those other Limerick fellas couldn't, like Gerard Haggerty, for example. Now, Haggerty was incredibly economical. Like, I think he'd only the ball in his hand 5 or 6 times in the game. Like it's just, and Tony could, like, 14 plays, you know, had a couple of wides that, you know, you'd normally expect him to nail. He actually had played a couple of passes. George tried to work a goal a few times. He could have ended up with 10 points, like, you know, in a game like that, you know, where nobody could get their hands on the ball. So, like, you'd have to give Lohan unbelievable credit for getting that out of Tony. And obviously, Tony's once in a lifetime player, but look at how he's playing under Lohan compared to how he performed under previous managers. So, yeah, look at inspirational guy, and you know, absolutely the whole county is just roaring behind him and behind the team. And like, I can't wait for Sunday. It's just gonna be electric stuff.
Finally, Chrsity, just the belief that Clare are bringing into the game against Limerick, the fact that I suppose that maybe when you have a team such as Limerick, so efficient, so able to win matches, particularly finals, and really a machine or a brilliant team, but Clare have belief. And how relevant is that they're going in believing that they can win, that they really do think that Limerick are beatable?
Sure, look at Keane, it's everything really. We said it here, like you've seen teams in the past that are going out playing Limerick, and you nearly know that they're mentally beaten before the game even starts. Like they're like, and even the other thing is, you look at, would say, for example, Kyle Hayes. Like, you know, Kyle Hayes is probably the most powerful player in the country. You've seen him going out, you know, just literally walking over fellas, like literally getting guys and firing them out of his way. Like you look at the last day when they came out to Ennis, like Conor Cleary just stood up with him and literally just was able to go toe to toe with him. Like, and you know, and often that just meant it was a wrestling match. You know, whereas like a long ball or high ball is dropping, and Cleary's there, and he's just literally he's you know, taking on Hayes maybe trying to overpower him, knock him out of his way. He couldn't do it. Like, you know, you look around all of that Clare team, like, you know, massive men, Dermot Ryan, you know, John Conlon, Dave McInerney, Cleary, like Peter Duggan, Cathal Malone, David Fitz. Like these guys are all over 6'2", like they're big men, like. And the other thing as well with Clare that I think a lot of people have underestimated, Keane, is like they actually have pace as well. Like, you know, Limerick have a lot of power, a lot of physicality. Don't have the same pace as other teams, right? I'm not saying Clare would have the same pace as a Waterford or a Cork, but they have pace in key areas. And like, you know, the one thing I suppose with Limerick is Limerick lack pace in key areas, especially around their half back line. But they're just so set up like that they have three players protecting that half back line all the time. They don't give you the chance to run at them. But like, you know, like even the last set, you look at Peter Duggan, for example, you look at his contribution against Waterford, like incredible. Because, like I think against Waterford, I was looking at this, Peter Duggan, Cian O'Connell, David Fitz, three of them didn't play last year. So against Waterford, they either scored or assisted 316. Like that's off the chart stuff, right? Now, Shane and David Fitz was excellent against Limerick. Shane and Peter didn't play that well. But like Duggan still needs a lot of watching. Cian O'Connell still needs a lot of watching. Like, you know, these guys are, you know, in the blink of an eye, they turn the game. Like, so it might need that from Clare on Sunday, Keane. It might need a 2 goals from Peter Duggan. It might need Shane bagging 1-2 and setting up another couple of big scores. But like these guys are capable of that. And the other thing is, you know, they both played against Waterford when, you know, Clare rested some of their big guns like Tony and John Conlon. But, you know, Peter Duggan and Cian O'Connell leaded those games because, you know, Shane didn't play the league. Peter only came back late in the league. They both didn't play last year. Peter hadn't played since 2019. So like they're getting better with every game. So like, and they're going in absolutely zero fear of Limerick. So yeah, like bring it on from a Clare perspective because, you know, they feel like that they're the one team that Clare always say if they feel they're right, they're the one team that they feel they have Limerick's number.